we're thinking about your client's needs, not just for today, but for the years to come. You know, one device could potentially be staying with your client for 5 years, you know, so definitely if we're thinking about your client in the next 5 years of their life, we're thinking about how old they might be, what transitions they're going to go through, the skills that we would love to see them have over definitely that next kind of 3 to 5 year period and beyond that as well. A trial is meant to be authentic. We want our trial to, as best as we can, reflect their everyday life. We want the device to be used in environments and everyday routines with familiar people. We target vocabulary that will increase their engagement and their participation in daily routines, and this is in line with the ICF framework as well. We're aiming to create a snapshot of what their life could look like with the communication device. My last point is preparation equals success. The work that you do before the device arrives matters just as much as the work you do when the device is actually in front of you, okay? So preparation equals success, yep. So the framework I'm using today, we have a trial handbook that Kelly, our WA consultant, very graciously wrote for us in January. So the trial handbook has 5 key steps to help you have a really successful trial. So I'm going to be following that general guide today. So everything that I say is also going to be backed up in our trial handbook. So there's kind of 5 steps in an AAC trial, and it's one of those things that once you start doing a few trials, you'll notice that these steps just don't really change by and large. The first step is know your client and know your options, know the different devices that you might want to trial with them. Step 2 is set some trial goals. Step 3 is set up your device. Step 4 is start your trial and collect evidence. And step 5 is apply for funding. Okay, step 1, know your user and choose your devices. So part of knowing your user is about knowing knowing the support network that they currently exist in. So we will need to have an understanding about, you know, what they perceive as the client's strengths and also the areas of need. And we also need to understand who will be implementing this device with the user in their various environments and how we might support them to do that. To gather the team, you could host a planning meeting with all the key members. There's never been an easier time to do this with the rise in telehealth user in their everyday environments, and we start to find some commonalities between environments and the goals that we might want to set. So for example, the teacher might tell you that, you know, they really feel that this user needs to learn some vocabulary to ask for help in the playground. And you also might find out from their parents as well that they're really finding it hard to ask for help maybe during mealtime or during afternoon tea time because they can't open containers or open chip packets or things like that. So you might actually start to see commonalities around the types of vocabulary or the types of goals that are going to be useful in a variety of environments. Creating an email thread or a way that you can easily contact all of the different parties involved is going to be important so you can share information easily. It's a really great time at this point to get in touch with your local consultant and make yourself known. And yeah, also we are happy for you to give out our email and our phone numbers to the clients, to the clients' parents, their teachers, whoever is going to be involved with them. Okay. So a great way that you can start to share a common understanding of the user is by using the SET framework by Joy Zabala. The SET framework is an acronym and it stands for Student, Environment, Task and Tools. This is a format to frame your discussions with the support team and to help you plan for targeted supports that meet the user's goals. So an AAC system is just one strategy that can actually help them to meet their goals. Yeah, so we're kind of thinking about these supports on a wider framework. This is just an example of a SET framework form that's been filled out for a student that has complex communication needs. They've just mentioned what the student's current strengths are, the environments that they're in, the tasks that they complete, and some possible tools as well that might support them to achieve better level of participation in those tasks and environments. Okay, feature matching. So there's lots of factors that you need to consider about your device user across a range of categories. So these include language and literacy, their sensory needs, fine and gross motor, their routines, any upcoming transitions, vision, hearing, a whole range of factors. This is just to demonstrate to you the importance of a thorough assessment before your trial commences, so that you're able to get a clear picture of your user's strengths, their needs, and what you might be considering in fitting them to the right device. An example might be if you have a user with a degenerative disease, who will need a device that can support multiple access methods. You might find out that they have strong literacy skills and they prefer to use a text-to-speech based system. They may be about to transition into a nursing home, and they're going to have a lot of different carers who will need to be trained to support their communication. So this information would greatly influence your decision in choosing an appropriate trial device. So these are some features of a device that you'll need to be aware of when you're feature matching. So each device will come with different features. So you'll need to choose the appropriate device or devices that you would like to trial with your client. An example might be, so from the user above with the degenerative condition, they might mention to you that, one of their goals is that they'd like to be as independent as possible. For example, they might want to have a device that allows them to control environmental controls, like turning lights on and off, or controlling air conditioning, controlling the TV. So this means that you'll need to investigate a device such as the Accent device, which supports this type of feature. Okay. This is our product guide. So this is a handout that's available on our website. It's a really great tool that gives you a quick comparison of all of our devices and the software options, and also, not software, the vocabulary options and the access methods that each device supports. Okay, so once you've decided which device or devices you'd like to trial, we have a free 3-week trial scheme. So to order a device, you just go to the link that's on this page on our website. You can order one or multiple devices for free. The postage is completely covered. You also have unlimited phone or online support from your local consultant as well. So please, please, please get in contact with us. We are passionate and love to chat with you and make sure that you feel supported to have a really successful trial. Your parent or their carer can also contact us as well. That's also fine. Yep, so this is the contact details for your local consultant as well. Just making sure that I pause so that you can note down any details of your local consultant that you might not have. Yeah. Okay, step 2, set your goals and gather your resources. So setting trial goals. Your trial is going to run a lot more smoothly if you have clear goals. If you end up applying for funding for this device, the funding body will look to see that the trial was monitored and there was a level of positive indications that the device will meet the client's goals. We encourage you to make sure that your goals are SMART. So we learned about SMART goals at uni, but they're specific, measurable, accurate, relevant, and timely. Keep in mind that the trial only goes for 3 weeks, so make sure your expectations are also realistic for the time period. It's important, and the research tells us over and over again, that we set goals with the parents or carers. It just means that they're going to have so much more say in how the trial goes. The motivation is going to be increased. They're going to be so much more invested in this trial, and so it's really important that we set the goals with the parents and carers. It's also important that we are teaching them about the AAC prompting hierarchy, so that they can gradually step the level of support up or down as needed, so that the user can hopefully use their device with a greater level of independence towards the end of the trial. A good example of the prompting hierarchy can be found in our trial diary, so I'll send that out to you guys afterwards. Ensure that when you set your goals, you're covering a range of different pragmatic functions. So for example, requesting, rejecting, commenting, asking or answering a question, and that the vocabulary that you're choosing will allow you to do this. So for example, I could choose the word want or don't, and this is going to help them to request or reject. I could choose a word like for commenting. What or who can also be used for asking a question. When we're choosing words, we can choose a range of core and fringe. They complement each other. We need core words to, express a variety of pragmatic functions. We also need fringe words or nouns to be more specific in different topics that we'd like to talk about. So both are important, both go hand in hand. Okay. So we've had feedback from the NDIA that successful applications often feature goals that are set using Janice Light's communicative competencies. This is a framework which breaks down a user's communication skills into 4 areas: linguistic, operational, social and strategic. We encourage you to purchase the AAC profile by Tracy Kovac to assist you to set and measure your AAC trial goals using these competency areas. This table is courtesy of Rocky Bay. Thank you very much, guys. They have a handout that is linked in the on the page below that will take you to an information page about goal setting. Okay, so your trial goals, and especially your linguistic goals, will be centered around target vocabulary. The words that you choose to focus on should be linked to the client's interests or what they would naturally want to say. Words like sit, wait, listen, these are often chosen for trials, but they're more words that are directives from an adult to the user, rather than words that the user will want to use themselves. So just consider these words and whether your client is actually going to be motivated to use them themselves. Covering a range of core and fringe words will mean that the user can practice these in a lot of contexts and for multiple pragmatic functions, just like we mentioned before. Adding fringe words is important because your user can talk about specific topics and objects and people, so don't neglect fringe. Okay, so when we're selecting words, it's helpful to check back in with a core vocabulary list that is evidence-based. There are core vocabulary handouts in our trial handbook, and the one that you can see in front of you is a combination of the established lists from prominent researchers, and it's available on our on the AAC Language Lab. Okay. So this resource that you can see is called the Activity First Mind Map. It's also available in our trial handbook, but also from the Saltillo website. This resource can be used by speech pathologists, parents and teachers alike to help you to choose words that are related to the user's interests and everyday activities. The example that you can see here is for a client that loves to play with trains. So we've chosen lots of some question words. We've chosen words that that initiate or request recurrence, words that negate. We've got some nouns and some describing words. We've also got our action words like open, drive, push, pull, look, put, hold, help. But we can sometimes generalize these words into more general core words like go, do, get it, see. Once they've got these general core words, we can then try and increase the different types of verbs that they've got, but they need to have a foundation first. This user also loves to go on the swing, and it's no surprise that you can see that the core words that we were targeting in the activity before, some of them have reappeared in this activity as well. So this is just to make a point that core words can be generalized across activities, which is why they're awesome. We've also got some fringe words as well to do with swinging that are more specific to this activity. Swing, seat, and bubble. Okay. So we strongly recommend that you download the Pass or New Voice software if you're trialling an accent device, or the chat editor software if you're trialling an LR7, a Nova Chat device, or a Chat Fusion. Unfortunately, these are PC downloads only, so this is the one thing that we need to make you aware of, PC only. Yeah. So some things that you can do with your Pass software, you can access LAMP Words for Life, Unity, EasyChat, Core Scanner, Essence, a whole range of vocabulary files that come on the accent device. It will speak for the first 90 days as well, so that's a good chance for you to get familiar with the speech settings as well. You can create smart charts. We'll go over what they are later. You can back up the vocabulary file from your client's device after you finish the trial. You can also make edits remotely as well. So the client can be at school using the device. You can have a copy of their vocabulary file on your computer, make edits to it, and then you can save it back onto their device the next time that you see them. Super handy. This is a smart chart. This is what I mentioned before. So smart charts are a way that we can visually represent the core words that you're working on with the client, and then the icon sequences that each of these words represents. So this is for obviously LAMP Words for Life and Unity, where icon sequences are a feature of these vocabulary files. With smart charts, where you could use them practically would be once you've created them in your Pass software, you can copy and paste them into a Word document, print them out, laminate them if you feel so inclined, and then you can hand them out to parents, to teachers, to anyone that's working with that device user, just as a visual prompt about, okay, these are the core words that we're focusing on, and this is how you find them. These are just some instructions here about how to create a smart chart on your Pass software. If you get stuck, just call your local consultant and we're happy to help you through that. Chat Editor has similar functions to the Pass or New Voice software, but just slightly different settings. So you can still access LAMP Words for Life, but you can access a whole range of other vocabulary files that belong to the Chat family, such as Word Power, Multichat 15, Spelling, and many more. You can create, they're called, I think they're called screen captures. So these just help you to, for example, show the different icons that you need to press in order to make, in order to find a single word or to make a phrase. So it's similar to a smart chart, but not at the same time. You can still back up the vocabulary files and make edits remotely on Chat Editor as well. So very handy to have. Okay, step 3. Set up the device. Set up. So during this time of social distancing, you'll probably want your device to be delivered directly to your client's house. This isn't too much of an issue, luckily, because the trial devices that we send out, and especially the accent devices and some of our chat devices, have what's called Team Viewer on them. So this is an application that once you download it onto your own computer at home, you can remotely log into your client's device and set this up for them, or with them rather. So that will make your life a lot easier. If you choose not to use Team Viewer, that's also okay. You can work with your user and their carer or parent in an online meeting, and you can set their device up with them and guide them through that. So these are some basic features that you go through, like choosing the right vocabulary file, setting up an access method if you have it. If you're using LAMP or Unity, LAMP Words for Life or Unity, learning to use the masking feature is quite unique to that vocabulary file. They also have a word finder. All of our devices have a word finder actually, so that can be super helpful, a good learning tool to find the icon or the word that you're after. Also, our devices come with a quick reference guide. It'll either be in the box that the device arrives in, or we have soft copies that your local consultant can send out to you as well. So a 2-page cheat sheet about how to set that up. Yeah. We have a YouTube channel called Liberator Oz AAC YouTube channel. We have a whole stack of different tutorials about how to set your device up. We have just uploaded this morning a tutorial of an accent device. It's called Out of the Box, and that will help you to set up your accent trial device from start to finish. So hopefully that'll be really helpful for you guys. Okay, step 4, start the trial and collect evidence. During the trial, the most important skill that your user's carer or parent will need to master is aided language stimulation or modelling. So this means that you will need to coordinate, that they will need to coordinate interacting with the user, verbally modelling language, and then selecting the right icons on the device all at once. So effectively, it's like doing 3 things at once. It's pretty hard. The diagram here can be used to explain the importance of using the client's device to model language, especially in the early days of using this device as well. We can clearly see that if we're only speaking to the user using verbal language, how can we expect them to speak back to us using their device? So we actually need to speak to them not only verbally, but also using their own form of AAC. Yeah, so the input has to match the output. It's also important to emphasise practicing using the device in a range of environments as well. So a little bit hard when you're socially distancing and you can't necessarily go out to the shops or go out to the park, but it could even be, you know, practicing in different routines during that day. So during afternoon tea time, when they're getting dressed or when they're reading a story for bedtime, that still counts as a different environment or a different context as well. This is an example of an AAC script. This can be helpful for parents or carers just to help them map out how they're going to do those 3 things at once, how they're going to interact with the user, verbally model language, and also model this language on their device as well. Not easy. A script. This is actually a really good quote by Gail Van Tatenhove. It just says, a script helps communication partners think about their role in the communication exchange and also how to organise and engineer an activity to promote the use of core vocabulary and generative language. There are examples and templates of these scripts inside of our trial handbook, so lots of stuff in there. What can you do in between sessions? So there's a few things that you can be encouraging the user's parent or their caregiver to do. First and foremost, they could be creating an AAC script, or they could use another planning tool to help them plan out how they're going to model the target vocabulary in motivating and everyday activities. They might wish to make a short video or just take a short video snippet of the user in a few different activities using their device, so that you as a speech pathologist can get a snapshot just about how they're going in real time. Hopefully the parent or the caregiver is filling out the trial diary as well to capture how the user is going. This is important because we need to see how they're going at using the device themselves and how much support they're needing as the trial goes on. You might also wish just to give the parent or carer a call during the week between sessions just to touch base and see how they're going. This is an example of a trial diary. It's just a data collection sheet. It has a simplified prompting hierarchy so that the parent can just note down the core words they've been focusing on for that week and also detail how much prompting the user needed in order to select those words. This is another example of a trial diary. It just focuses on the different pragmatic functions that were used during an interaction with the client. So the parent or carer could note down the date at the top and then tick off the pragmatic functions that they observed in the activity or throughout the day as well. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about data logging in realised language. So each of our devices comes with a feature called data logging. This means that it will capture everything that is said on that device with the date and the time as well. You'll need to upload the data log from the device onto realizelanguage.com. Realize Language is a website that will turn the raw data log into graphs and charts which will help you to interpret how the device was used during the trials. Freya, one of our WA consultants, is going to be speaking about this in a webinar next week, so I'm going to save all the details for her, so stay tuned. Okay, step 3, oh no, step 5. Wow, step 5 is about the evaluation of how your trial went, and then if you feel that it was a successful trial, following through to the funding application. Okay, so after the trial is over, you can support your parent or their carer to save the data log from the device and then send this over to you via email. You might also ask them to photocopy or take a picture of the trial diary that they've been keeping and then email this to you just to complement the data from the data log. The graphs that you can see here are just an example of how the raw data is going to be displayed in realised language. So the first graph that you can see is parts of speech, so it's just telling you how many words were used on that device and just the breakdown of parts of speech. Again, we don't know whether it was the client using this or whether it was the parent or the carer modelling, so that's kind of why we need the trial diary to complement the data log as well. This is another graph that you can find on Realised Language, just showing you the patterns of usage. So, for example, Monday and Tuesday and Thursday look like really solid days. Their usage went down on Wednesday, so you can potentially in your weekly phone call with the carer, call them and just find out, oh, you know, what happened on Wednesday, what supports can you put in place to get their usage up. And Friday looks like it was an awesome day, so you might find out what happened on Friday, whether there was more people to support the client on that one day or whether they were just having a really good day. You might also wish for your client's parent or the caregiver to fill out a pre and post questionnaire just to get some more qualitative data on the trial. So we've filled out this questionnaire, or 2 questionnaires here, just for you to get a comparison about how you could use it. You might wish to compare the client's feelings or the carer's feelings about their communicative competency before the device and then before they had the device and then after they used it, so a pre and post measure. Or you might wish to compare their competency across different communication devices just to get a clear, potentially a score of their satisfaction between different devices as well. And then you can include this to the end of your NDIS AT application. And now the fun begins. So if it was a successful trial, it's time to write your funding application. Yay! So we do have an NDIS AT tip sheet that our therapy team kindly wrote for us. This will be included in the email that is sent out to all of you. Jess has just been making some small changes to it this morning to reflect a few changes that have happened within the NDIS. So that will be a fantastic resource. We've had some really good feedback from it as well. I'm not sure if any of you have used our NDIS AT tip sheet, but a lot of people have said they've used it and they've actually had some successful applications go through, or they've written different types of goals, or they've changed how they've set their goals, they've changed how they've actually argued their point across because they've read our tip sheet. So would highly recommend using it. Just some things to remember when you're writing your application. A really big one is be clear and concise. I think as if you're a speech pathologist, if you're anything like me, I am incredibly verbose. I talk too much. There's too much fluff in my reports, and sometimes I need to send it to my colleagues to be really, kind of firm with me about what I can cut out. Don't be afraid to use dot points where you need to as well if you are describing your assessment results from the client, or if you're objectively comparing the different features of devices and how they will support the client. Be evidence-based in how you describe the benefit of the device to the client, and this includes using journal articles and using evidence, published evidence as well. Knowing your audience, generally if you are applying for a dedicated device, it is going to go to a higher delegation panel. Now the people on this panel generally have experience in the prescription of you know, quite complex equipment, but they may not be a speech pathologist. They might be from a different discipline. So please be aware that if you're, please don't use any jargon. Try and be, again, as I said, clear and concise before, because they may not be a speech pathologist. So just be aware of that. Be familiar with the reasonable and necessary criteria. The reason why I say that is because they are going to be marking, or not marking, but evaluating your arguments based on this criteria. So the criteria, there's 5. It must be related to the participant's disability. So the device needs to be a support that's related to their needs from their disability. It must include a must not include day-to-day living costs not related to the disability, like groceries. It should represent value for money. It must be likely to be effective and work for the participant. And it should take into account the supports that are already being given by the government or by their informal support networks. So they are the 5 reasonable and necessary criteria. So we always need to be thinking about that, testing our argument against those criteria and trying to link it back to that constantly. Not only do we need to link our argument back to the reasonable and necessary criteria, but we also need to be linking it back to the client's NDIS goals. So always be linking it back to that. We've talked about SMART goals heaps today, so I won't go too much into that. But along with your SMART goals, you need to also have clear outcome measures as well. So there's nothing wrong with having a description of how the client went in their trial, but also consider using well-researched and widely used measures such as the IPA, COPM, or GAS goals as well. So again, there will be information about that in our trial diary. But please consider using these. Again, it's just, if you do use clear outcome measures, it is evidence of a really high quality trial. Your local consultant can support you to find information or to set clear outcome measures as well. That's communicative competencies before. Again, it is when they are used in an NDIS application, it is another example or an indicator to the person reading this on the panel that is a high quality trial. So please consider using that. Again, the AAC profile by Tracy Kovac is a great guide to help you set your goals using the communicative competencies. The last point I want to make is just to focus on the functional impact of the device and how it's going to be helping your client to improve their overall communication competency. So when I talk about this, it's thinking objectively about, for example, the hardware of a device and how it's going to be functionally impacting a client's life. So the client before, for example, you may have chosen an accent device because it includes environmental controls and it also includes access to a phone, so for texting and calling. So what it means functionally for this client is that they can be as independent as they can in calling people, texting people, in controlling, the lights, the air conditioning. They are not going to need to rely on people, as much as they would if they didn't have that. So please be considering that from an objective point of view. If the application comes back and you don't agree with the decision that the NDIA has made in relation to your participant, you can actually apply for an internal review of that decision. You have 3 months to make this request from the date that you get that reply back from the NDIS. If you want more information about this, please visit the link below on the ndis.gov.au website. Okay, guys, that brings us to a close.